I'm Michael George, and I would like to discuss how utilizing a student's home language can be a powerful tool when teaching ESL learners or ELL learners, and also understanding instructional practices along with exploring the needs of language learners, how instructional practices like scaffolding, using cognates, etc. can be extremely helpful and almost a way to reverse engineer most of us teachers who are, maybe finding some difficulty in a classroom that's filled with ELL learners, but not knowing that you can actually use what's already there based on a lot of theories to continue to teach the target language. So, learning has its challenges, but just imagine how difficult learning a completely new concept in another language without being able to utilize any frame of reference in one's native language can be for some of our students. It's for this reason that cognates, scaffolding, and many other concepts are vital tools to assist teachers of English language learners while they learn a completely different subject in English or English itself. Just imagine someone explaining to you, a native English speaker, or whatever language is your native language, that has not learned any other language, but they want to learn like quantum physics in Chinese. Imagine them trying to explain this concept to you, and you have to learn all of that in a whole nother language, basically. This is a reality that children and adults in the classroom with English teachers every day, their reality is what they face when teachers force them to conform solely to the rules of like English grammar without being able to rely on their language to help them understand, because they may have already understand that concept, but then you're saying, no, don't try to speak your language, only speak my language and understand it this way. They might already have the idea of the concept and it would actually make it easier on you. So just let them use their own language. Every teacher is aware of scaffolding as a strategy for teaching. One presents an enduring understanding or a check for understanding within reading comprehension while providing parts of the answer, then gradually removes more and more as the students build confidence to answer on their own. But one may wonder how this would look in the application to teaching English. In an article with Continental Press, Melissa Miller discusses various strategies for scaffolding and teaching English. She discusses modeling, activating prior knowledge, promoting classroom interaction, using visual aids, and pre-teaching vocabulary. Although she discusses scaffolding on a more surface level, one strategy that she mentioned could be extended to include the home language. In suggestions for teaching vocabulary, she asserts, and I quote, "People often learn better by seeing rather than just hearing. This is especially true for English language learners, as visual aids help them contextualize information a way of teaching vocabulary," end quote. If one were to teach vocabulary and put pictures with each word, at her suggestion, I would also place, me personally, the home language next to the word we are learning in English. This would truly support the language learner, as it would activate prior knowledge in the home language that can be utilized as opposed to someone who is learning the concept contained within the idea linked to the word. Eventually, you can remove the native language and the visual aids until the student is completely proficient in the target language, like if it's English, for instance. While it may be new for some, a proficient speaker or even a linguist may already be well aware of a concept, so it is not helpful to simply see a word that is unknown and associate an idea to a different word in a different language. If you could do that in the home language, it would already activate encoded information that relates to the previously stored information, where one would simply just adjust of previously formed schema. Now, before we move further, it's necessary to explain cognates, which can be an integral tool in teaching using the student's native language. In Linguistics for Everyone, the authors explain that cognates are words descended from a common ancestor, not just words that happen to look like each other. For example, the word for father in Latin is pater, in French, père, and in Spanish, padre. This similarity suggests that all these words come from a common root language, Latin, and are in the same language family, the Italic family. That's Denham and Lobeck, 2013. One may benefit from providing scaffolding in the student's language with branches of English linked in between until the student gains confidence and builds proficiency. Since the skills of the language present in the cerebral cortex are usable in Broca's area, it makes sense to mine what is already present to the benefit of the student and the teacher, essentially. In the logic behind utilizing the student's native language, one paper that analyzes not arguments for or against, but empirical evidence supporting the implementation thereof based on best practices, yields that some students, and I'll open the quote, some students have revealed that students believe their L1s have a place in the target language classroom, and that L1 use during such instruction can help teachers show empathy, explain difficult terminology, and scaffold information, scaffold comprehension. I got excited there. This is Lee et al. And Crichton et al. As quoted by Lisbeth and Ulrich. I can attest to this anecdotally, as I often break into Arabic during instruction in my class, as a target language is English, but my learner's native language is Arabic, and students are perceptive to my empathy, relate to me more, and we seem to build likability and cohesion. I do appreciate that the paper goes on to state that strategic use of other languages are more important than the amount. The strategy is more important. The previously mentioned article also investigates how said strategies underwent implementation for the benefit of the study, as well as which ones were utilized most, which has a strong correlation to their effectiveness. Elizabeth and Ulrich state usage of the following practices and the frequencies, and I quote, notably, some practices were characterized by brief instances of Norwegian to respond to a student's needs, scaffolding, terminology, domains. In contrast to longer stretches of Norwegian, meta-linguistic explanation, task instruction, practical information, class management, empathy, solidarity. There's that empathy again. Now, they were, of course, studying, Scandinavian languages. The target language was English, but they spoke, their native language was, Norwegian. In the social context of the classroom, the teacher's practices influenced students' use of language, making each classroom a different context. That's end quote. Lisbeth and Ulrich. I just interjected my own information just to kind of explain, sorry. Interestingly, the usage of language seems to rest among the teacher's usage depending on the context, and the strategies every teacher can find useful have been stated. Scaffolding, terminology, domains, meta-linguistic explanation, task instruction, practical information, classroom management, empathy, solidarity. Just imagine being able to be in a class filled with Spanish speakers and then say, siéntate for classroom management, for instance. That's just another strategy, using the native language. These are highly interesting, and those which I find I can use in limited fashion, as my Arabic is not proficient to the point that it does not matter about the amount the teacher knows, just that they provide scaffolding, empathize, can provide task explanations in that language, operate in solidarity, etc., in the home language while teaching in the target language. As this paper found, I also do that in my class, but my speakers are strong enough in the target language to not necessitate frequent usage, but my key aim in the class is in the way that I will continue to utilize such for empathy and solidarity. That's how I'm going to use mine in my class. I also have the scaffolding that we mentioned with Melissa, and also I'm going to talk about a third strategy I suggest for teachers that can use cognitive more heavily or have more linguistically dependent students. And we have already mentioned the visual aids in the teaching of vocabulary with the new word in the target language and the native language and with task instruction. I feel the best way to do such, especially if you are not proficient in the native language of your student, would be rally-robin style task instruction. In this scenario, it is less rigid. It's a less rigid form of round robin, where each student only speaks for a total of 20 or 30 seconds. You pair up your students and explain the instructions to them in the target language, okay? And then you explain to the student beforehand when you signal them that each student will speak to each other for only 30 seconds with no priority for partner A or B, but that each can speak and exchange information at a quick pace back and forth. The key would be to let the students explain to each other in their native language. We usually do this with English speakers so that students have buy-in to explain task instructions to each other, as they can clear up confusion from the teacher's explanation. But with native language support, will allow them to feel even more inclusive. So those are a couple of strategies. I gave 3, a couple that I'll implement in my own class, and I kind of hope that this would give you some suggestions if it's like, you know, I mean, teachers are already challenging enough, but if you have a group of students that don't speak a lot of your native language or the target language if you're teaching them, you know, if it is your native language, this can kind of provide some hope to say that, hey, we got cognites, we have, you know, scaffolding, we have a lot of tools in the toolkit, so break them out.